Hi everybody, it's Erin Johnson with OutstandingOhio.com, and I am here today with another Making It Monday, helping you to make something great. Today we are going to be making brookie dough. That is a combination of chocolate chip cookie dough with brownie batter, and it is from this cookbook, Hello Cookie Dough, by Kristen Tomlin. She is the founder and CEO of Dough, which is a cookie dough shop in New York City, and she has spent a lot of time and effort kind of perfecting how do you make cookie dough so that it's safe and edible to eat but still really good, because sometimes people will skip the eggs and skip some other ingredients and it just doesn't taste quite the same, some of the things you can get in the store and so forth. But this, if you make it the way she outlines, it's safe to eat, and you can also bake it if you choose. My daughter, I got this cookbook for my daughter for Christmas, and she made a batch of it, and none of it made it to the oven, I have to say. So we'll see if that happens this time. But there's really two main things you need to know about making the cookie dough safe, and it has to do with the eggs and the flour. It's pretty common, to hear like, oh, you shouldn't eat raw eggs. And the trick with that is to use pasteurized egg whites, which you can buy in a carton like this. There's also a way to pasteurize them on your own, but it seemed kind of complicated and just a whole lot easier to buy it in the carton. So we did that. And then for the flour, you actually have to heat treat it. And I'm gonna read you this excerpt. It's kind of scary. You'll never think of flour the same from the book. So the Center for Disease Control refers to flour as a field product, meaning it comes straight from the field to the consumer without undergoing a treatment process. If you think about it, the wheat is grown in large fields with the birds flying overhead and critters scampering here and there. Unfortunately, there isn't a kill step during the milling process that gets rid of anything those creatures may have left behind. Yuck. As a result, flour is a known carrier of Shiga toxin producing E. coli. And it goes on to say, once the flour makes a journey from the field to your counter, it camps out there for months, giving bacteria that may be present ample time to grow in your flour. So typically the reason this doesn't become a major issue is because that kill step happens when you cook it or bake it. But if you are just eating raw cookie dough, that hasn't happened. So basically you need to like pre-cook your flour to kind of do that kill step to make it safe to eat. And or she does sell online preheated, treated flour if you want to just buy that directly, but it's pretty easy to heat your own. You will need to get a instant read thermometer, like a candy thermometer. So I got this one at Bed Bath & Beyond, I think for like less than $10. And put it in a bowl and put it in the microwave on high. And you basically microwave it for 30-second intervals until it gets to be 165 degrees throughout. And then once it gets to that point, you heat it for another 30 seconds and then it's good to go. So I just did that. I put it in a bowl. I think it took like 2.5 minutes, maybe like 5 or 6 times with the intervals. Stir it in between so you don't get weird hot spots. Put the thermometer in there, make sure that it is 165, and then you're good to go. The other ingredient that you may not have typically on hand that this does call for is cornstarch, which comes in a can. You can buy that in the baking aisle. And then for the brownie dough, you will need some cocoa powder that you can buy in the can. Otherwise, it's kind of your typical sugars and vanillas and things like that, ingredients that you would use for cookies. So to actually make the brookie dough, it's really making two things. You're making the chocolate chip cookie dough and you're making the brownie batter, and then you're combining them. So I'm actually going to show you 2 different recipes and then we'll combine them, and maybe I'll throw it in the oven just to see what happens there. So first we'll make the chocolate chip cookie dough. I did forget to mention that you are supposed to let the flour cool for like about half an hour before you make them. I'm not sure that I have that kind of patience, but ideally you kind of do this in advance and let it cool. And you're also supposed to have the egg whites at room temperature, which mine are still a little chilly even though they've been sitting out a while, and the butter at room temperature. So a little bit of preparation to get kind of the things at the right temperature to get started. And I will also give the disclaimer that I have not made this before, so you are kind of taking this journey with me as I make this for the first time, so I'll be referring to the recipe quite frequently, and hopefully it'll turn out good. My daughter made it by herself and it came out great, so hopefully I can make it as good as her. Okay, so first the chocolate chip. The recipe says in a medium bowl, whisk together the heat-treated flour, the cornstarch, the baking soda, and salt. And so I had to do a little bit of math to get this to be a half batch. So it's 1 1/8 cup of flour. So that's 1 cup. Okay, we're gonna call that 1/8. That's for the flour. Next is 1 1/8 teaspoon of the cornstarch. Definitely is some weird math here with doing half a batch. So that's the 1 1/8. And then for baking soda, it's 1/2 of a teaspoon. And then the salt is 3/8 of a teaspoon. What do I do with my salt? There it is. One, 2, and 3. Okay. And it says to whisk it together, but I'm just going to use a spoon. Stir it up a little bit, combine all these dry ingredients, and then we're gonna set that aside. And then it says to use a paddle attachment and the stand mixer and beat the butter on medium speed until smooth and creamy, about 2 minutes. So we'll see how this goes because this butter's not really room temperature yet. I guess it's getting there. So it's 6 tablespoons of butter. So where did my knife go? Cut the... It's supposed to be unsalted. I only had salted, so mine might be a little saltier, but we're gonna put that in there for, what did it say, 2 minutes. Okay, so it says 2 minutes until smooth and creamy. I think that actually looks pretty good. I'm just gonna show that to you. So it's pretty smooth looking. And then the next ingredient is white and brown sugars. So white sugar is 1/8 of a cup. I don't think my measuring cup goes that small, so we're going to use this. Okay, so 1/2 cup of brown sugar packed in there. So you've got, let's see, medium speed until light and fluffy, about 4 minutes. All right, I let that go for 4 minutes. It's really not a lot of dough. I don't know if you can see that, but it definitely looks light and fluffy, ready to go. And then the next step, so use a rubber spatula to scrape the bowl. So I did do once during the 4 minutes because I didn't like, seems like it doesn't get all the way to the bottom. I thought there was like butter stuck on the way bottom. I wasn't getting that, so there we have it. And then, let's see, add the egg whites and vanilla and mix until fluffy, about 2 minutes. So the egg whites, so this calls for 1/6 of a cup. So I happen to have this thing that has 1/4 and 1/8 marked, so I'm gonna eyeball in between there because that's a very strange measurement. 1/6 of these egg whites pasteurized. That looks pretty good. And where's my vanilla? Okay, vanilla is 1/2 of a tablespoon. It's like a lot of vanilla, but probably makes it taste good. And what am I doing? Mixing for 2 minutes until it's incorporated and fluffy. So you're supposed to mix it for 2 minutes until it's fully incorporated, not fluffy, fully incorporated. And I would say that's looking pretty darn good at this point. So the next step is to mix in the flour mixture. And as I was reading this book, she says it's important to really, when it says like just until combined, so this says actually to put about 1/2 of it in and then just mix it on low until you can't see any powder anymore, and then put the rest in, like it's like 15 seconds, and then put the rest in for like another 15 seconds until you can't see the powder, and then stop. So I guess that's the way to do it. I haven't typically done it that way, but we're gonna try it. All right, we're gonna call that half, and let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 14, 15. That did pretty good, except there's still some flour on the edges. So I'm gonna just push that down. And then I'll go ahead and add the rest of it. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 14, 15. Let it go maybe a couple more seconds to still see a little powder, and that looks pretty good. Okay, 15 seconds is the trick. All right, and then you remove the bowl and fold in the chocolate chips. So there you have it, without the chocolate chips, and then it's a 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. Just gonna put some of those in and just mix them in a bit. And then put the rest. And there you have it. You can eat it right away. Who wouldn't want to do that? There's a nice spoonful of it. Very good. Okay, next up is the brownie batter. The first step is to take 1 cup of chocolate chips and 3 tablespoons of butter and put them in a microwave-safe bowl and heat them in the microwave in 30-second increments until it's melted. And after each 30-second, take it out, stir it a little bit, and then do it again. It took, I think, about 2 minutes. And I'm still just combining it so it's nice and melty and delicious looking. So that's the first step. You just do it till the chocolate's melted and set it aside. And then similar to the cookie dough, you're gonna whisk together the flour, cornstarch, baking powder, and salt, and then also cocoa powder on this one. All right, and then so to just whisk that together. Again, I'm just gonna use a spoon and stir it together. All right, so we'll have that ready to go. Okay, so you're gonna put the chocolate mixture, the melted chocolate mixture, in your mixing bowl. Again, you wanna use the paddle attachment. Get it all in there. Don't wanna miss any goodness here. Add white sugar and brown sugar and mix 2 minutes until well combined. So we're gonna mix that up for 2 minutes. Next thing to put in is the pasteurized egg whites and the vanilla. Mix just until well incorporated, about 2 minutes. Okay, so after mixing that for 2 minutes, it's even more runny. I'm just gonna show you. It's gonna show you there. It looks like just a pot of melted chocolate. It looks absolutely delicious. Last step is to add the flour mixture. It says just until the texture of the flour disappears, about 30 seconds. Scrape the bowl and mix a final 15 seconds. So let's try that. It doesn't say to do it half and half this time, so we're gonna pour it all in. I have to admit, I've never even made, with all the baking I do, I don't think I've ever even made brownies from scratch. So this is kind of cool. Okay, that should be good. Apparently I followed the directions wrong. You're supposed to only use half of the chocolate chips at the beginning, and then the other half you're supposed to fold in. So we're gonna have really chocolatey brownie batter, and I'm gonna put more chocolate chips in. Why not? So it can be chocolatey chippity, and do that. Yeah, so it should have been half of a cup of chocolate chips at the beginning with 3 tablespoons of butter melted, and then you're supposed to put the other half of the cup in at the end. And so, you know, why not? Can't have too much chocolate, right? So I'm just gonna fold those in, and we're gonna have ourselves some brownie batter. And then we can combine the brownie batter with the cookie batter to get our brookie batter. So exciting. Okay, so there you have it. It is very chocolatey, and I'm gonna taste it now. There you go. Wow. That is very chocolatey. Definitely I'm gonna need a glass of milk. Okay, so we have our chocolate chip cookie dough and we have our brownie batter, and the last step to making the brookie dough is to combine the two. So it says to take half of each and start kind of folding them together and then put the rest in. It did say for a more cookie dough-like consistency to put the brownie batter in the fridge for like a half an hour before you eat it, but who could wait that long? So let's see here. I'm just gonna try to, if you can see that, just kind of fold it in without totally mixing it in, I think is the key here. I did set aside some of each so that I can try to bake them individually to see how they come out, just to make a few cookies out of this. Fold it over a little bit. Trying to do this with one hand while I'm typing. I honestly feel like that is enough of the brownie dough. I don't know that I'm going to put any more in. That stuff is so rich. I think I'm going to keep that separate, and we're going to call this brookie dough. Okay, so I decided not to put all the brownie dough in there because this seemed good enough, and that brownie dough, because I put so much extra chocolate chips in it, is really rich. So that is how we have the brookie dough, and I'm going to get myself a bite, nice swirled up bite, and see how it is. That is delicious. Yep, definitely a winner. Okay, so here's what else you need to know. First of all, there was some recommendations in here if you want to do any mix-ins with your brownie batter. I'm going to show you these pictures because doesn't that look delicious? So they have one of their signature combos. It's called Chocolate Dream, that they combine chopped Oreos in, and it looks like some more chocolate chips, I don't know. And then they have one called Caramel Chocolate Pretzel that they combine a 1/3 cup of pretzels chopped, a 1/3 cup of caramel bits, and a 1/3 cup of chocolate chips. That's for the full batch. So if you're doing a half batch, you would have that. But if you are interested in baking these at all, I can give you the instructions on that, and then also storage. So you're supposed to store the dough in the refrigerator. It should be good for 1 week in the fridge. To keep the best flavor, it says to press plastic wrap over the top of the dough and store it in a container with an airtight lid. If you put it in the freezer, the same thing. It can freeze for up to 1 month. To thaw, place in the fridge for 6 hours. If you want to speed it up, leave it on the counter for about an hour. If you're in a real hurry, heat the frozen dough in the microwave on 50% power in 10-second intervals, and just make sure nothing's melted. If you want to pre-scoop your dough onto a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, freeze for 30 minutes, and then take those scoops and put them in an airtight container or a freezer grade Ziploc bag. And yeah, so that's how you store the dough. For baking, it says to first transfer your dough to the airtight container with the piece of plastic wrap on top of the dough. Put it in the refrigerator to chill for 24 hours. If you can't stand to wait, place it in the freezer for at least 2 hours. So it says that step helps hold the cookies hold their shape and gives you a nice gooey cookie center, so don't skip that step, it says. You have to be patient. But once the dough is chilled, you preheat the oven to 350, and then you can line your baking sheets with parchment paper or silicone mats. Use a cookie scoop to portion it onto the sheet. Okay, so once you've got them all out on your cookie sheet, you're gonna bake 9 to 11 minutes for soft baked gooey cookies until the edges are light golden and centers are just set. Check halfway through to make sure it's cooking evenly and rotate the baking sheet if needed. If you want a crispier cookie, keep it in the oven for an additional 2 to 3 minutes until edges are golden brown. Remove from the oven and let cool on baking sheets for 5 minutes, and then enjoy warm or transfer to a wire rack to cool completely. And then you can store the cookies in an airtight container at room temperature. And you should enjoy those within 3 days, it says. And then you can also freeze them for up to 3 months and bring them back to life by popping them in a preheated 275-degree oven and check them every 5 minutes. You can also let them thaw on the countertop. And make sure they're out of the container so they don't get soggy from condensation. So that is that on how to make brookie dough, but then you also have the recipe if you want to just do chocolate chip cookie dough or the brownie batter to enjoy them separately as cookie dough, or if you want to bake them into cookies, you can do that as well. So many options, all delicious, and hope you enjoy as much as we do, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.